we're going to continue talking about the binomial distribution. But this time, we're going to write down the formulas for the binomial distribution for the mean, the variance, and of course, the good old standard deviation. I'll define the variables at the end. The mean, mu, is n times p. The variance sigma squared is np times mu. That is, if you know np, mu, just multiply it by q. If you know mu, just multiply it by q. And the standard deviation, sigma, is the square root of npq. That is the square root of mu q. Where n equals the number of trials. P is the probability. P is the probability of success. And Q is 1 minus P. That is, if Q is 20%, if P is 20%, Q would be 80%. 20% is 0.2. 1 minus 0.2 would give you 0.8. So, for example, you want to see if this baseball league is racist or not. And suppose that in the community, let's try it a little bit differently. Suppose that of all the people who want to play baseball, the probability that you are Japanese is 80%. So 80% of the youngsters who play baseball in this community is 80%. So you might think if only 5% of the people in this league were Japanese, that something's wrong. Now, I shouldn't say the league is racist. Maybe Japanese people they're not treated equally, so they can't get good jobs, and in turn they can't pay the membership to be in the league. But it does show something's wrong if about 80% of the people in the league are not Japanese. So now, suppose that you randomly select 50 of the baseball players in this baseball league. And you want to know the mean and the variance and the standard deviation for the number of Japanese players. Well, what you're told is that P is 0.8. Well, that means that Q is 0.2. And N is 50. You ask 50 baseball players, are you Japanese or not? And the mean is N times P. Is 0.8. Well, let me write it in the correct order. It's 50 times 0.8, which, by the way, is the same as 0.8 times 50. Now, 0.8 is 80%. I just want you to believe that this is logically sound. And times is the same as of. you want to calculate, you would expect the average to be 80% to 50. The average number of Japanese ball players would be 80% to 50. And 50 times 0.8 is 40. You would expect on average, well, the average number of players will be 40. Now, what's the standard deviation? Or what's the variance? Let's go to the bottom right. The variance is NP times Q. Well, coincidentally, we just computed NP. It's 40 times Q. Well, if P is 0.8, Q is 0.2. And when you multiply these numbers, you get 20. Now, that's not true. You get 8. And sigma would be the square root of 8, which is 2 square roots of 2. Okay, and you can round that off using a calculator. If you know the variance, which we do, is 8, just take the square root of it, and you'll have the standard deviation. So these are the formulas right here. Let's do a couple of more problems. Let's keep the formulas in front of us. Suppose that you are taking a test. Okay. You're taking a multiple choice. Let me rephrase that. True, false. True, false test with 10 questions. Okay, find the mean, the variance, and the standard deviation. So we need to know N, P, and Q. N is, so find the mean number of questions you expect to get right. So question is right. Find the variance and the standard deviation. Well, there are 10 questions. The probability you be correct is a half. Probability not be correct is a half. So the average that you get correct, well, there's 2 choices. They're equally likely, and you randomly guess, you're probably going to guess 5 of them. And NP, 10 times a half, that's 5. And the variance is NPQ. Now, if you want to reinvent the wheel and put down N, which is 10, and P, which is a half, if you want to put times a half times Q, if you want to put it down a second time, put that down twice, that's your business. But already know it's 5. 5 times a half is 5 halves, or 2 1/2. You would the variance is 2 1/2. The standard deviation is the square root of 5 halves. If I multiply the top by 2, I get 10, and I don't know the square root of 10. But I have to multiply the bottom by 2. 2 times 2 is 4, and the square root of 4 I do know. So this is the square root of 10 over 2 is the standard deviation, and the variance is 2 1/2 or 5 halves. Sometimes you have to read a bit to get the information. Suppose that in a study of 10,000 cell phone users in America, in a study of 10,000 cell phone users in America, we notice something. Okay, in 10,000 cell phone users, 50 got headaches, regular headaches. Okay, in 10,000 cell phone users, 50 got headaches. And we're going to assume that if you got a headache, it was because you used the cell phone. Okay? We're going to assume that you got the headache because you used the cell phone. Okay, so now in your calculus lecture hall, find mu, sigma squared, and sigma for cell phone users who get headaches. Okay. Now, in your calculus lecture hall of 100 students. So we need to find N, P, and Q. N is 100. In your calculus lecture hall, find mu, boom, sigma squared, and sigma for headaches. How many students would you expect to get a headache? Well, we're going to have to assume that the information on top is correct. Out of 10,000, 50 got a headache. If I can kill off a 0 on top and bottom. So I have 5 over 1,000. 5 goes into 5 one time, goes into 10 two times. So the probability of getting a headache is 1 in 200. So what's the probability of not getting a headache? Well, if in 200 people, 1 gets a headache, I suspect 199 did not. So now the mean is NP. N is 100, P is 1 over 200. It's a half. If 1 out of 200 people get a headache, and there's only 100 people, well, if there were 200 people, 1 person on average would get a headache. If there was half as many, like 100 people, you would expect half of 1 or half to get a headache. Now, sigma squared is NPQ. Well, we've already done NP, and Q is 199 over 200. So it's 199 out of 400. That's the variance. The standard deviation is the square root of 199 over 400. Now, I have no idea what the square root of 199 is. But I do know the square root of 400. It's 20. 2 times 2 gives you the 4, and the number of zeros get doubled. 1 0. When you square it, you get 2 zeros. Because 20 times 20, they each have a 0. So the 2 zeros get tagged on to the 400. So those are your answers. You have to be able to extract the information from the problems, from the words. Okay, that's going to be the end of this section. Good luck with it.